Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. Welcome to this webinar organized by the European Network on Independent Living together with the World Independent Living Network. So this event is organized as a webinar. So you can find in the link the link to the live captioning in English, Spanish, and Japanese. We have also international sign interpretation, and we have simultaneous Spanish translation. So you just click on the button downstairs for the translation and you will have it. So why did we choose for this title, Centers for Independent Living and International Cooperation, Disabled People Leading Their Own Future? As development cooperation is one of the thematic of this COSP 17, we wanted to emphasize the importance of centers of independent living worldwide. So they are essential elements for the independent living movement because they are community-based, they are cross-disability, they are non-profit organizations, and they are designed and operated by disabled people. So that's why they have the control over what they provide, and they can be adapted to the needs of every individual. So they support and provide different services such as personal assistance, peer support, information, and training. So the defining elements of a center of independent living is self-determination, self-representation, equal chances and opportunities, self-respect, and especially choice and control over the service that they support them to respect and to live and to participate fully on equal level as all the other citizens. So CILs, we will call them, Centers of Independent Living, have a key role in implementing also Article 19 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, providing essential services for disabled people and to live independently in their communities while ensuring choice and control of the users over the service. However, in many countries across the world, there is an insufficient number of centers of independent living, and those that are present remain underfunded, and there is a lack of capacity to support to the needs of the users. So development aid has not yet been sufficiently explored as a tool to further develop these centers in low and middle income countries, despite their potential, because one can learn from them also. So this is partially caused by a lack of awareness of development actors about the positive impact of centers of independent living. So in this context, our event will highlight existing initiatives to finance centers of independent living in low and middle countries. It will also raise awareness among development actors of the benefits of those centers, and it is really worth it to invest in them and to push for further action to build centers of independent living in variety of regions and contexts. So the event will all really gather experts on this topic, donors that are currently funding CILs, representatives of centers of independent living across the world, including in low-income and middle-income countries, and disabled users of the service itself. So we try to gather all the different perspectives. So without further ado, I'm very happy to introduce the first speaker of this event, who will be a user. He will give us a short testimony from his side, and we ask him to explain a little bit what is his experience by accessing the services of a center of independent living, and what make it different, why a center of independent living and not other kind of services, and also what are the obstacles that they face to have access to those services. So without further ado, I will give the floor to Marco Carlos Barrenas. Marco Carlos, you have the floor for 7 minutes, please.
Carlos,
Carlos, you need to unmute yourself, please.
Sorry about that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, today, well, my name is Carlos Barrantes. I'm actually one of the staff members of the Morpho Center for Independent Living, and I'm going to switch to Spanish from now on. Ok, voy a hablarles un poco sobre mi
Hi, I'm going
experiencia
to talk about a little bit about my experience
miembros
as
del
a
Centro de Vida
person from
Independiente,
the
de los servicios de un centro de vida independiente.
Independent Living Center.
¿Cuál ha sido mi
Um,
experiencia? Yo he
what has been my
recibido
experience?
servicios de un centro de
I
vida
have
independiente, en
received
este caso el
services
Centro de
from
Vida
Independent
Independiente
Living.
Morfo, por
In
los
this case, is
últimos
Morford.
12
In the
años.
last 12
Sí, más de
years,
una década he sido
it's been more
usuario
than
del
a
servicio
decade since I've been
de un centro de vida
using these
independiente.
services
¿Qué ha
from this
hecho esto? Bueno,
center.
me ha ayudado
What
mucho
has it
en mi
done to me? Well, it has helped
desarrollo
a lot
personal, en
in
mi
personal growth
autoconceptualización como
and
una
my
persona en
own
situación de discapacidad,
view, how I view
gracias a la
myself
interacción
and
que he
this
tenido
disability, thanks
con
to
mis
the
compañeros del Centro de Vida
interactions that I have
Independiente.
had with my
He
peers.
estado
I have
involucrado activamente en
been
mi
involved,
comunidad
actively involved in my
gracias
community,
a este Centro de Vida
thanks
Independiente
to
que me
this
provee muchos
bill that
espacios
has
para poder
prevented,
participar
provided
y
a lot of
también dependo
opportunities
del
to
servicio
participate.
de asistencia personal para
I've
poder
also been
vivir de
able
forma
to
independiente, tener
get help
mi
so that I
apartamento,
can live
venir
a
al Centro de
life
Vida
independently.
Independiente, dar
So I can
voluntariado,
also come
estudiar
here and
también, fui a la
volunteer and
universidad
study.
gracias a
I also went to the
formar parte del
university
Centro de Vida Independiente y he tenido la
thanks to this
oportunidad
bill.
de entrenarme
And I also have had the
ese
opportunity
activismo y
to have
los
training
servicios de
and to be
consejería de pares.
active
También
and
he
have and
recibido esos servicios que me han hecho
due to the
o me
services
han
that I have
permitido
received,
aceptarme
they
a mí
have
mismo y han mejorado
the
mucho mi
services have
autoimagen
allowed me to
como una
accept
persona en
myself
situación de
and
discapacidad
to
y
feel
también me ha
more
permitido
of a normal
dar
person due to my
servicios
disability, and
a
also to
población
provide
con
these services
discapacidad. O sea, no
to this
solamente yo
population
recibo,
of
sino que también
disabilities.
puedo
Not
dar
only am I receiving,
servicios
but
a
I'm
otras
also
personas en
able
situación de
to
discapacidad.
give these services to other people that are also disabled. What makes it so different from other service providers? Well, first, it's operated by individuals with disabilities. That helps that we are able to understand our own challenges. This idea and all of this ideas help that we're for us to be able to understand other people with disabilities. It helps, but the personal development when we get involved in the community, and it opens up a space to foster these ideas and implement these ideas in this cell. Well, what are the obstacles in accessing these services? Well, first than anything, in my country, in Costa Rica, they still prioritize care services over support for independent living. So we still don't have the model, the social part of it. So and then this makes the country to go more and emphasize and prioritize care services. This is a very slow process. People really don't know sometimes where to go. So this is where the still goes in to help the person. But if the person is not a member of that cell, it's even more harder to get access to. Also, the government is also asking for all of this transaction to be a personal. You have to be there personally, in person, and that's very hard for these people whenever they're in rural areas, when they don't have access to these services. And also, and at this moment, the National Council of Disabilities is currently in a reduction process of budget. They're reducing the hours assigned for these services, and they've already released this new personnel. So they're manipulating the norms and they're doing things that are unconstitutional to reduce these services. It is a very worrisome situation that exists. All of that in regards to disability. And supposedly, this is here so that they can protect it and provide it. That is the situation that we have at this moment, unfortunately. This has been my experience as a user of a center for independent living. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlos, for respecting the time and for sharing your personal experience with more value of using a Center for Independent Living. Our next contribution is completely different from another perspective. We have with us Stefan Trommel from the International Labour Organization, and we asked him, what's the role of a Center of Independent Living as social service providers and the link with the UN agenda as his organization is member of it. So what is ENIL's role in supporting social service for disabled people, and how can they support quality employment, because that's also very important that we have decent quality services. And then also, how can Center of Independent Living advance the Agenda 2032? Stefan, I'm all honored to pass you the floor, and you can introduce yourself, and you have your 8 minutes. The floor is yours, please.
Not really having any role in terms of promoting social services for persons with disabilities. But today we're currently just celebrating the International Labour Conference, and a general discussion is happening right now in this very moment about the care economy. And we have managed to expand the notion to address care and support. And that is, as you know, has been a request coming from disability organizations, reflected also in the International Day of Care and Support. The conclusions of this discussion will be available on later this week, but already the draft conclusions include two important references that remind everybody that care and support needs to be available to persons with disabilities. And even more importantly, it refers to the fact that care receivers, including persons with disabilities, need to be part of the discussions, no? Because the discussions very often in what is in the care economy have been very much around the gender issues, because we all know that when care is not being financed, it falls on the shoulders of women mostly. And it also has the main concern of the ILO has also been the working conditions of care workers, and I'll come back to that. But now I think it's very important that the discussion is broadening, no? And the disability angle is much stronger taken into account. And that is also, and as you know, within the ILO, we've jointly, in fact, between ENIL and us, we have worked together. We have produced a working paper. We did a webinar back in March, which helped for our colleagues also in the ILO to better understand the disability narrative around that. So I think we have made some good progress over the last 2 years, but of course, much work ahead. And I think part of the work ahead, and I think also something we can do together, Nadia, is to better explain the concept of centers for independent living. We have in the care economy discussion, we speak sometimes about care cooperatives, but it's mostly cooperatives of care workers. No? But I've already signaled to my colleagues that from a disability perspective, CIL are a type of care cooperatives where people with disabilities are both users, but also users of the services, but it's also directly controlling and managing these services. It's a concept that is very unknown outside the disability community, I would say. And I think one contribution we could make is, because already in the paper we did together, we had some focus on CILs, as you remember, but it was not the main focus. We decided to take a broader perspective, looking generally about personal assistance service and all that. But I think now we can zoom in on CILs as probably in my view, I think the best example of provision of these services. In terms of the quality of employment, I'll speak in a moment about the employment for the user, but let me focus for a moment also on, of course, on the quality employment of the care provider, which is something that is where we look at it from the ILO perspective, because, and this is being discussed also these days, there's a general agreement that the working conditions of care workers, including care and support workers, personal assistants, are poor. COVID-19 pandemic exposed further the bad working conditions in terms of salaries. Well, we all know about the additional restrictions during the pandemic times. And in the general discussion about working conditions, it is clear that care workers need to be recognized for their work. It needs to be seen as valuable work, and it also needs to be rewarded. And reward means also it needs to have a good salary. And this is a win-win situation, because I mean, if personal assistants are not properly financed, well, then we cannot expect good quality service for users of personal assistance. And for that, we need adequate resources. We've just heard from Carlos how in Costa Rica they are starting to cut the budget. Not something that comes as a surprise. It's happening also in many other countries. And in many other countries, as you know, Nadia, there are not even at this stage any type of personal assistance services. But at the same time, a part, of course, of ensuring the adequate resources, I think CILs can also be a leading example in terms of training of the personal assistants, providing training. We addressed that in the paper we did together. I mean, you drafted. But also, for instance, the protection from violence and harassment, which in the context of the ILO normal is only seen as violence and harassment faced by the care provider. But what we've also said to our colleagues, violence and harassment can happen in both directions. And we need to have violence and harassment protocols which protect both the provider of service, but also the receiver of service. And so I think these are issues on which we need to continue to work on, and I think those will help moving towards this quality employment. The last question you asked me is a big one, which is how can CILs contribute to the Agenda 2030? It's just yesterday I attended the launch of a new report by the UN. It's a second disability and development report, which basically looks at all the SDGs from a disability angle and tries to find out what statistics are available in terms of how much people with disabilities are enjoying or not the different, are meeting the different targets of the SDGs. And goal number 10, as you know, is the one about community inclusion. And it has a specific statistics around people with disabilities who need personal assistance but don't have it. No? And the figure they gave, which I found was, I would have expected to be even higher. So I have my doubts about that. But they were saying basically that 44% of persons with disabilities who require personal assistance do not get it. No? So that is an issue. As I said, for me, I think the percentage is even higher, but at least there's this one statistic. And then the other issue, and with that I finish, that we've also tried to convey to our colleagues in the ILO is, because when they think about care, they think about children and older persons. And there's no expectation of the care receiver to be working because they are children and they're older persons. But when we speak about, and we heard that from the example from Carlos, when we speak about personal assistance to persons with disabilities in working age, it's a precondition for them to be able to work. And that is sometimes something that is forgotten in the general care discussions, where basically the only work that we are thinking of is the work of the care provider, and not here where the provision of support is allowing the person receiving that support to be able to engage in meaningful quality employment. I leave it there, Nadia. Thanks again for the kind invitation.
Thank you very much for your contribution and for at least ensuring us that there is a paradigm shift happening within the labor. And I know Stefan is locked in his car to join, so he will not be present during the question and answer session, but please don't hesitate to use the chat, use the the question and answer department posted, and we will definitely follow up and bring you Stefan's answers later on. So without further ado, we heard about a user and how he used centers of independent living. We heard about labor, how they defend the conditions and also the quality of their employers. and employees. But now we will have another input, and it is from those who are leading centers of independent living in low and middle income countries. Now we have two examples from Asia and Latin America. So we asked them in general how if they could introduce their center and how they started the center and how they provide the service to see how it make a difference, and also how they have strengthened themselves between other service providers, and what kind of obstacles also that they find so that they could share with us. So without further ado, I am pleased to give the floor now to Shafiq or Rahman from the organization Milestone in Pakistan. And after him, we will have Wendy Barantes. She's from the Centro de Vida Independia Timorfo from Costa Rica. Both of you have 7.5 minutes each. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a great honor for me to be the part of this webinar. I will, in short, I will share the challenges which we face when we was thinking to start independent living concept in Pakistan. It was 24 years back. So there was two major challenges. The first challenge was to the economy. In poor countries or the underdeveloped countries, it's difficult to find the resources for to operate the independent living centers. It was the first challenge. And the second challenge was religious and the cultural approaches about the disabilities. Disability subject. That was the second challenge. And for the first challenge, we got the support from the independent living centers of Japan. They supported us. They provided us the training and opportunities to learn the concept, and also they financially support centers in Pakistan. So, with the support of Japan Council of Independent Living Centers, we make the base of the IL in Pakistan. So the first challenge was the survival and philosophy, and then the survival of the IL centers. And when we started the services to the community, and we found that there is need to explain the society about the different lifestyle of person with disabilities. And it took us 10 years to make the base of the IL movement in Pakistan. And after 15 years, there are only 2 independent living centers. There was only 2 independent living centers in Pakistan. But right now, we have more than 25 independent living centers, which are creating and utilizing resources locally. I mean, without any international funding, they are surviving now by financially, and also they are providing the services. How it happened, it was, a very good example for the countries who thought that we cannot, IL concept is for the rich countries and economically developed countries only can provide the services. I think it's a misunderstanding between the, developed countries and the underdeveloped countries, management and the governments. Whenever we went to the government of Pakistan, they said, okay, you are talking about the personal assistant service. It's a very luxury. And for example, last time I have the meeting with the president of Pakistan, and then I requested him to provide the personal assistant service to the paralyzed people who are waiting for assistance. They are prisoners in their own bodies and they are waiting for services in their homes. Why not government is providing funding for to provide the personal assistant? And he replied that we don't have the resources. Pakistan is underdeveloped country. It's a concept of like, developed countries. And that the right time, the same time, a person came to the president table with a glass of water to serve the water to the president. And I asked the president, sir, we need the same services what you are getting. You have choice to use your hands. for drinking waters. Our friends don't have choice to drink water with their hands, but our hands are used by you, your offices. The people, the system is using our services. The people, for example, we have a right to mobility is, for example, mobility is our fundamental right. Cars and the vehicles and the mobility devices are the maybe the luxuries for the people who are using legs for movement. But for us, it's a human right. These are not luxuries for us. Devices are not luxuries for us. And personal assistant service is not luxury for us. It's our human rights. So that concept was when we started debate in 2017, and then COVID happened. But the meantime, during the COVID, we got the chance that everyone was a prisoner in their own home. So everyone was isolated. So that was a turning point in Pakistan. And we explained, look, without, going outside, without human interaction, how life is, so, dangerous to live. It's not easy to live without human interaction. So that was the turning point in Pakistan in the sense of advocacy. And in Pakistan right now, we have many IEL centers who are providing services. And what is the role of developed countries to underdeveloped countries? The best example is Japan, which is supporting many independent living centers in many Asian countries. They are sharing knowledge, they are sharing the resources. Even we are receiving the used wheelchairs, electric wheelchairs from Japan in Sakura wheelchair project. And that project is a big contribution. Right now in Pakistan, 1,500 persons with severe disability are using electric wheelchairs. Just imagine, even they are used electric wheelchair, but we learn how to modify them again and customize them again for the next person. So that was turning point in Pakistan to provide the services. And we are facing the two type of challenges. Developing countries, we also are facing the two challenges regarding independent living future. First challenge is the religious and cultural explanation of the independent living concept. This is very important to explain, to link IEL concept with the culture, with the religious approaches. We need some kind of research to to address the concept of independent living generally, because IEL concept is the only concept which can apply in anywhere in the world. This is my understanding about the IEL concept. If Pakistan can provide independent living services, so all countries in the world can provide it. We are so difficult country. And there was a big challenge because after 9/11, there was the Muslim countries has their own living style and their own philosophies, their culture. Okay. So it was the big challenge, but we did it. And I believe that all religions and all culture can accept IEL movement very easily, very easy. It's not a big deal. So thank you very much. My time is over. And yes, of course, IEL TA service is a big chance for the non-disabled people to get the jobs. And it could be a win-win to everyone. So to get the jobs and opportunity to serve each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shafiq. Without further ado, I'll hand over to Wendy. The floor is yours, por favor.
Muchas gracias, Nadia. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Shafiq. A very good morning. First and foremost, we would like to, to the panelists, we would like to give a warm welcome to all of those who are participating in this webinar. I will be presenting. Once more, good morning to everybody. For me, it is a privilege to be able to be with you, to be able to speak to you a little bit about our experience in Latin America, especially with Morpho independent living and our strategies. We are going to answer the following questions. First, we're going to talk about what is the history of our CIV and what services do we offer? How do you differ from other service providers? And what are the obstacles? What was the beginning of our history? First and foremost, Morpho was already starting to project a project called Cali. This project is invited to Costa Rica in an agreement made with JICA, in which he not only came to this conference, but he also had the initiative to be able to make a covenant with JICA, so that way all the people from Latin America can receive this training in Japan. So it started in 2008, all throughout 2013. And in Latin America, we were able to receive this training. And then in 2010, after we had many people participating in this and going to Japan, we were able to gather together, and then we were able to gather together and begin the initiative, or take the initiative to be able to open our own center. And then in 2011, the first people who took this initiative to become independent, and that's when we moved from our different regions to BSDO, and in 2011, without having any formal project. And then that was how, and in 2011, this project was presented, and we were able to open officially in 2012. We had two phases. We had the SIL in 2012 through 2017, and then the second phase from 2017 to 2022. In the first phase, which was very focused on making consciousness and awareness of a system for assistance. And then, as we did in Japan, we did a try of a political where we were able to do a tour in the areas of our countries, and we went 83 kilometers in wheelchair for them to be able to approve our law. And this law and this system began to execute in 2019 through this independent living of Morpho. What are the services that we offer of independent living? We give advice on independent living. We talk about what the philosophy of independent living is and how to be able to help those with a situation of disability. And then we also talk about training and delivery of personal assistance. We do consultation windows. We give an internship in national and international organizations. And then we also have training and sale of training services. And we have accessibility inspection with the Ministry of Health. We also offer empowerment and the defense of rights and internship in national and international organizations. Also, we offer the services of that they don't become violent, and that during we also have an inspection that is done with the, here in Costa Rica with the Ministry of Health to be able to define what the law is. And it has to deal with everything that has to do with the conditions of accessibility and that it be fulfilled. What makes us different? Basically, because the services, as Carlos had mentioned before, they are administered by the same people who have these disabilities. And that allows or provides for the services be more focused and based upon the model of disability and human services and human rights. We are also able to provide personalized attention and by gender. We have the rotation by day and in shifts. So in other words, we have users that are males who are helping males, and then we have those females that are giving services to females. We have those rotations which per days, and they are worked in shifts, and they provide for coordinations who are able to assign hours for those who are giving services, and they will be able to provide services as a mediator with a user or a participant. Also during times of emergency, we also have internal regulations and support, control and supervision instruments, and we have a network and within ourselves, and then also within Costa Rica and all the different ILs and CILs. And then also it's very important that we do not repeat these cares. We are aware that we are giving this care to people who have their own rights to do the things by themselves. And so in 2023, we had the Zero Project. And with all the situations, the political issue, situation that we've gone through, we were able to create this new poster here in Costa Rica. And then here is how we are different. We have these different influences throughout the region. What are the obstacles, which are vast for us? As we have reiterated here, we need a lot of resources, human and financial resources. And then because all the services that we provide are free, and there is also a great recess of rights of conservatorship with the government and the courts, they are not taking into account the voice of the disabled person. And then, for example, Carlos had already mentioned a small portion where they are reducing the hours of the people who are working with that have disabilities, and then other arguments that they don't even have legal validity. And then they are also the care system without the opinion of the PSDS. We need to be able to be taken into account and to be able to build this agenda. We know that there are people that require a lot of help, but then we need to be placed into that agenda, and we need to be at that working table, and that is what our greatest obstacles are. I also reiterate my commitment in this global network of independent living, that we be able to continue working and helping those people with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wendy and Shafiq, for highlighting that the start was very slow. Your difference make that you resist, and that despite the obstacles that are common in many, many countries, I think, on the financing and the other obstacle, is something in common that we definitely need to address to governments through, because we should not forget that Article 32 of the United Nations Convention on the Right of Persons with Disabilities on Development Cooperation is stipulating that when there is a bilateral or a collaboration between two countries, they are obliged to promote the CRPD within the both partner countries. And within that promotion, independent living is always lacking for the moment. So that's something good to remind our member states to it. So without further ado now, I will go to now one of those founders. In fact, we have with us somebody who invested in a project supporting centers of independent living in low and middle income countries. And so we asked them what was the content of the project and the impact of it, and what kind of recommendation could come out of it as inspiring in order that other countries would exactly do the same. So I am honored to have with me Mr. Sigito Itani. He's the Vice President of the Japanese Council of Independent Living Centers, and it's middle of the night. So I will pass you the floor, please. And if you can stay stuck to the 8 minutes in order that we still have some time for interactive part of question and answers. Thank you, Sigito. The floor is yours.
My name is Shigeto Itani. Let me start with my introduction. I am founder and president of CIL Hoshizora. I am vice chair of JIL and a board member of DPI Japan. I broke my neck in 2001 and stayed 6 years at home. Before I started living independently in 2008, I have been working on independent living and accessibility for the past 15 years. Today, I will talk about 5 topics. 1. Overview of Japanese IL movement. 2. Assistance to developing countries. 3. Current project and activities. 4. My international experience. 5. Conclusion. So first, overview of Japanese independent living movement. In Japan, disability rights movement started around 1970s, and we learned about independent living movement in 1980s. Many CILs have been established in 1990s. Due to the development of IL movement, public service for personal attendant have started to systemize around this time. Currently, we have 117 CILs across Japan, and people with severe disabilities who use ventilator also can live in the community. We have accessibility law of 2000 and Act for eliminating discrimination against people with disabilities in 2016. All due to the IL movement that brought my change for Japan. Now, I am going to present how Japanese CIL assistant developing countries. In 1999, a company called Daskin started training project that brought 5 to 6 Asians with disabilities to Japan every year. Some of those trainees, after they have returned, established IL centers in their countries. There are 2 difficult ways for assistance. The first is IL centers on funding. 3 Japanese CILs have been collaborating to assist since 2002. Pakistan, Nepal, Taiwan, Cambodia, Mongolia, from 2003. This summer, we will start assistance to Vietnam. This is Pakistan. Cambodia, Bolivia. The second fund is collaboration with development agency. Japanese development agency is called JICA. With JICA, we will have enough funding to support several years. We applied for JICA program to assist Costa Rica, South Africa, Mongolia, and Pakistan. This is IELTS Center Morpho in Costa Rica. Morpho has been doing great work. Morpho created Latin America IELTS Network. JICA project in South Africa. Right now, we are conducting training program for NGOs with JICA to train DPOs on international assistance. TIF organization visited Nepal. I also joined JICA project in Jordan and Syria for refugee assistance. This is another JICA project I joined in Colombia. My international experience. I have opportunity to work with refugees from Syria in Jordan and victims of conflicts, disabilities in Colombia through JICA projects. There are many people with disabilities around the world who are living very difficult situations and circumstances. We, as people with disabilities, can become friends on equal terms. CRPD is our goal, as well as it is measure and also our support. Now, it's a time to strengthen our IR movement around the world. Assistance to IR centers in developing countries is never one way. It is mutual. We give and we also receive. In developing countries, we praise our fellow friends and advocates are fighting in such challenging society. We realize that their movement is much stronger than ours. We need to do more. There are so many countries not yet have IR movement. Please join us supporting IR centers in developing countries to ensure people with disabilities around the world can realize independent living. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sigrid, and also for your effort to speak in English while it's not your native language. Thank you very much also for sharing with us how you were involved in all those projects and supporting the starting of Centers of Independent Living. And now we will go to another concept. Also, we stay in Japan, but we are going now to the donor. So those who finance the project that you participate in it. And so we wanted to know of how and what they were doing to support Centers of Independent Living and how their benefits from development and aid funding can come out of it, and what are the recommendations for them to other donors. So I have the honor to have with me Mr. Eriko Kobayashi. He's the Deputy Director of the Social Security Team in Human Development Department of Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA. So without further ado, Mr. Enrico, I give you the floor to explain a little bit the donor's perspective and how they can support centers of independent living. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Eriko Kobayashi, in charge of Social Security, Disability, and Development Cooperation at the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, a Japanese Development Aid Agency. JICA is an institution responsible for implementing Japanese government-sponsored technical cooperation programs. It is a great honor to welcome you all to this event organized by the World Independent Living Network and the European Independent Living Network. Well, let me move the slide. Yes, why does JICA collaborate with the organizations of persons with disabilities who are realizing their independent living? This is because we want to create a society in which everyone, regardless of whether they have a disability or not, can choose to live where they want, receiving the services they want. Independence means being recognized as an individual and having the freedom to make their own decisions in life, respected to the greatest extent possible, no matter how severe the disability. Therefore, enabling persons with disabilities to live independently in their communities is crucial to creating a more inclusive society. Now,
I'm sorry,
I'd like,
I just have,
yes,
sorry, I will interrupt you. Really, I'm really sorry.
no
I will
problem.
ask the sign language interpreter to restart her camera, please, because it's really climbing and glitching. So people cannot really follow. So it's not nice as we
Yeah.
recommendation.
That's
Sorry
true.
for that. We'll
No
give her
problem.
just a second that she can renounce it, and then the floor is back yours. Sorry for interrupting you.
No problem. It's okay now?
Yes, please go ahead. And also,
Okay.
the image is very clear. Thank you.
Okay, should I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. Now, I would like to talk about the specific ways in which JICA is supporting independent living for persons with disabilities around the world. First of all, in Latin America, independent living is one of the pillars of our cooperation on disability and development. One particularly impactful activity is training program organized in Japan by Mainstream Association, which has been conducting in Japan since 2008. Mainstream Association is a center for independent living and a longtime partner of JICA. Leaders with disabilities from Latin America are invited to Japan to learn about the history of the disability movement in Japan, the principles of the independent living movement, center operations, peer counseling, and independent living programs, and training of personal assistant. The participants from Latin America countries witnessed how independent living was practiced in Japan, and they studied the movement in their own countries. One of these, Costa Rica, opened its first independent living center in 2011, as Wendy has already mentioned. To support this, the project for promotion of independent living in Costa Rica was launched in 2013. Through this project, the Act on Promotion of Independence for a Person with Disabilities was finally enacted in Costa Rica in 2016, and the government service to dispatch personal assistance was realized. Another remarkable achievement is that the ex-participants have formed a network for sharing information about independent living and providing comprehensive support, which has developed into the Latin American Network on Independent Living, which is called LELAVIM. Next, next. Sorry, yes. I would like to talk about cooperation in Africa. In Africa, the independent living movement is particularly active in South Africa. As in Latin America, it started with training program in Japan, which began in 2002 and has been training leaders with disabilities in the African region. After that, through a project based on proposals by NGOs and others called the Grassroots Technical Cooperation Project, cooperation in South Africa began in 2013 by the DPI Japan, Japan National Assembly of Disabled Peoples International. In this project, 2 independent living centers were established in the Soweto district in Johannesburg, in Gauteng province, and in Ekurhuleni. The cooperation is still ongoing, and the project target area is being expanded to the entire province, with the aim of spreading the idea of independent living through the leaders with disabilities that have been trained so far, and building a foundation for independent living support. Finally, there is cooperation in the Asian region as well. There are several countries in the Asian region where the independent living movement is active, one of which is Mongolia. In Mongolia, a strong movement by persons with disabilities is being carried out by the Universal Progress Independent Living Center, and we are providing cooperation in the form of supporting this movement. The Grassroots Technical Cooperation Project by the Mainstream Association mentioned earlier began last year and is working to strengthen the management capacity of Independent Living Center, establish a system for dispatching personal assistant, and strengthen advocacy activities. I'd like to emphasize that what JICA have learned from our experience. We have seen that independent living enables persons with disabilities to exert their potentials and to be who they are. We have observed that independent living can only be achieved with the initiatives of persons with disabilities. We have reconfirmed that development actors can promote peer-to-peer support among the organizations with persons with disabilities. It is indeed a great honor for JICA to contribute to the independent living movement and play a part in connecting with the organizations of persons with disabilities. To move forward, we need to work with our partners, governments, development actors, and civil society organizations. I would like to invite you all to join this exciting and meaningful movement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Enrico, for the inspiring practice that you share with us. And I hope that will be good practice that other countries will also implement and maybe come back to you for further detailed recommendation on how to start, because it's always to start. So because development cooperation is always part of many member states, but it's just to start. So thank you very much. We don't have received yet many questions and answers, so I will leave that floor open. We have the person who is going to do the wrap up who need to leave. So we will give her the floor now so that she can do her closing remarks, but stay with us because we will have our interactive session right behind after her. So we will have question and answers still open. So brainstorm now. It's now the moment or never to write things. Those who are writing in Japanese, I'm really sorry. Masami need to help me if there's any question in the chat posted for us. But without further ado, I will give now the floor to Isabel Hodge. She's the Executive Director of the U.S. International Council of Disability. So Isabel, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Nadia. I'd also like to mention that I'm the new board secretary for the new Unified Disabled Peoples International and a member of the National Council on National Council on Independent Living, their international committee. So I think everyone will agree that this has been an excellent site event, and I'd like to thank Nadia for leading this important discussion and giving me some time to make some closing remarks before the Q&A. I heard some important points about personal assistance services which my own son uses, about access to centers for independent living for those living in rural areas. And I really appreciate hearing from Stefan that the ILO is working on addressing the care economy and personal assistant issues. And hearing from Shavik and Wendy about the important support they receive from the Japanese, which was an excellent example of the intent of Article 32 on international cooperation. JICA's funding and training support to other countries should be duplicated by other international development agencies, especially in the United States. So it's interesting that this month, the US disability community will celebrate the 25th anniversary of the landmark Supreme Court decision of Olmsted versus Lewis Curtis. This 1999 decision held that people with disabilities have the right to live in their own homes and receive services outside of an institution. Protections that were granted by the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. Even 25 years later, we have more than 16,000 people with intellectual and developmental disabilities living in institutions in the US. So efforts continue to ensure policy and programs comply with the US Supreme Court decision, and people with disabilities are able to live their lives to the fullest in the settings of their choice. Just a few years ago in my own state of Virginia, the state reached a settlement with the US Department of Justice, and more people received home and community-based supports and services as a result. But it is an uphill battle. So during my tenure as a government employee at the US Department of Human Services in the Administration of Developmental Disabilities, I was tasked with conducting an analysis of regional meeting comments and 4,000 public submissions we received online. I read comments from self-advocates, family members, allies, and professionals as they described their vision of the future. And among these were powerful statements from people who had transitioned from institutional living to independence. I also had the opportunity to review the potential impact of the CRPD while I was there, and looked at how ratification of the CRPD would impact Americans with disabilities, and supported decision-making emerged as a priority. And in the United States, we're witnessing now a shift away from restrictive guardianships. Last night, I was thinking about the state party reports, Article 19 and Article 32 on international cooperation as I was preparing my remarks. And my organization conducted a study on Article 32 and found that many state parties failed to report effectively on Article 32, and training was necessary. We published a free online course on the article covering 16 sectors that includes guidance documents for state parties and civil society. Development donors should ensure that the projects they fund are included in the reports. Likewise, recipients should report on the projects funded. Lastly, and because I'm a true advocate, and we're here in New York for the UN COSP this week, I'll say we desperately need an open online platform that has all of the reports submitted to the CRPD committee that can be filtered by articles and topics, so that we can see how all state parties are reporting on Article 19 and other related articles, and what their IL projects look like, what the list of issues are, a platform that can also cross-reference with other treaties, such as the Convention on the Rights of the Child. It would save the committee an immense amount of time, help them to address their huge backlog, and be incredibly helpful for advocates and researchers. This technology, friends, already exists and is ready to share with the UN. I'd end with this ask. I would like to recommend that the World Independent Living Network and the European Independent Network and others work together to send an open letter from the disability community and allies to the CRPD committee. We cannot wait for several years for the committee to monitor and respond to state party reports, children and adults forced to live in abusive situations. Their lives literally depend on it. I'd like to see them as the beneficiaries of the IL movement that we heard about today and enjoy their involvement with the independent living centers established in their own communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isabel, for highlighting what has been said during this webinar, but also for recommending us to go further than that and see with the committee the monitoring mechanism to put extra efforts to reduce the gap that they have in reviewing the member states for sure, and especially was about independent living. So you give us extra work to do, but it's needed. So thank you very much for being here and for your time and for your contribution, and we'll take it with us for sure. Thanks a lot. So I'll go quickly, and I know that we are over time and it's nearby, it's after midnight in Japan. I will just read out the three more questions that we have, and I then open the floor to the speakers to contribute. So we had a question about the big barriers of the administrative charges that the governmentals impose when you start a person assistance service. How can you overcome that? There was also a question if they want to start to establish the Center of Independent Living in India, on how to do that and where to find allies within the international development aid and support from other countries. And then we had also a question about the culturally appropriate context where we could realize independent living, because it's a human right. It should not depend on a cultural context, but to promote it, we need to frame it within different cultural context. So I will open the floor to every speaker on the panel today, if they want to answer to one of these three questions, or if they want to share with us something that they take with them from today's discussion. So I will open up. I will start maybe with Eriko.
Yes. Yeah. So
So,
should I, maybe I can answer to the question from India, how to it is can CIO office be opened in India? Okay.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Maybe I can recommend this participant person to talk with our office in India. We have office, regional office, country office in India. So he or she can contact with our office there, so that they can give some advice. So that is the one advice which I can give right now.
Okay, thank you. Any takeaway from you from today's discussion?
Maybe we can hear from other speakers.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Enrico. I will give the floor now to Shigeto, if you want to contribute, answer something, or share a last thought with us.
何か最後に言いたいことありますか？
はい。 そうですね。中でも言ったんですけど、本当に、なんていうのかな、途上国支援はいいです。障害者が本当に世界中にいるんだなって感じられます。ぜひ一緒にやりましょう。
As I mentioned in my speech, I really want to emphasize that assistance to developing country is not just only important, but it is very much exciting. It is so good to know that our fellow friends and families of disabilities are all over the world. And this is very exciting. So hopefully many people will join us.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thanks a lot. Okay, Wendy, do you want to share something with us?
Yes. I was reading a question there. They do talk about that movement, the independent movement, but they don't support anybody in financial way. I want to say that very clearly. We do have opportunities to talk to some people and have contacts, but it's not in a very open conversation or open support. It's sad. There's also conventions with organizations with Chile. I think we need to expand more and connect more with other organizations, like here in Latin America, so that we can grow and we can obtain this objective that they have as well. I think I also want to add Ebru from Turkey. They were doing some consultations, I think. And the way that we can make this visible to the government is that we have to still unite and work together as a city, as the whole population, to create an agenda for those that have setbacks. In Costa Rica, we have done movements with people that are disabled. We're not just trying to do this in Latin America, but we want to be in a worldwide movement. The idea is to elaborate an agenda and talk about these different themes that are coming about. Right here, it's public transportation has been really big.
Mhm.
In fact, yesterday, there was a microbus that was on fire that got burned. And right now we're talking about personal assistance. Many years it's been 200 people and it's just been we just have been getting setbacks.
Mm.
Like I mentioned earlier, they're not taking account the hours, the time that it takes to create this system,
Okay.
create this agenda. You know, these are some of the things. I think that we need to just work together and keep on working to create these agendas. And it's the only way that we can bring it up to their attention, to the states or part of the governments that are in office.
Okay,
Otherwise,
thank you.
it's not gonna be emphasized and it's not gonna be prioritized.
For sure. Thank you very much, Wendy. Shafiq, last call shortly, please. If you can share something with us.
Independent living movement. And yes, we can change the world. And only we can, I believe. We are the best chance for the world to change the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shafiq, for giving us that motivation to continue and that energy. Thanks a lot. Last but not least, Carlos, if you don't mind. Are you still with us, Carlos? Okay, then. So I also want to apologize that we lost our international sign language interpreter due to some technical problems. That was also we will try to send a report to all the participants, very detailed and descriptive, so that people who are using the sign language interpretation could later on also benefit from the outcomes of the question and answer session for the last round. So I will wrap up now. I will thank all the speakers. Those who are on the morning, in the afternoon, and late in the night. Thanks a lot for being with us. Thanks to all the people who are attending this webinar. We will make sure that we have all your contact details and that this webinar will be recorded, so it will be available online, definitely on the YouTube channel of ENIL, and we will see through WIN also. If you still have other questions, don't hesitate to send those questions. If you have suggestions or any plans, we are member of the World Independent Living Network in order to promote independent living and see how we can overcome all the barriers that we face daily. So many thanks for the sign language interpreter, many thanks for the captioning persons and the whole ENIL and WIN team who prepared this webinar and brought up all those great speakers that exchanged. So thanks a lot for all of you. And I wish you a very fruitful rest of the night, day, evening, and stay on tuned. We are continue to organize webinars with WIN and with ENIL. Thank you very much, everybody.